Welcome to Chapter by Chapter Stories. Last week we read Chapter 1, The Hollow Creek Files. This week we're going to read Chapter 2, The Staircase That Shouldn't Exist. So settle in, the story's about to begin. Rowan didn't remember deciding to go down the stairs. He remembered the moment right before it. Maeve's hands still gripping his sleeve, Eli's flashlight beam shaking, the owl's pale face watching from the branch, and then the next moment, when his foot hovered over the first step, like the space between thinking and doing had vanished. That was what the door did. It made choices feel inevitable. The dark opening beneath the sycamore breathed cold air up at them, damp and metallic, carrying the smell of earth that hadn't seen sunlight in a long time. The creek poured steadily towards it, as if the water had found its true path and didn't care what people thought about it. Maeve shifted beside him, jaw tight, eyes hard. She looked like someone trying to hold the world in place through sheer stubbornness. No, she said again, quieter now, as if saying it softer might make it more real. We're not going down there. Eli's eyes stayed locked on the stairwell. We can't just leave it open. Rowan swallowed. His throat felt dry, too tight. It opened on its own. Maeve shot him a look. It opened because you touched it. Rowan glanced at his palm. It didn't look any different. No mark, no stain. But his skin still tingled like it remembered the stone's movement. The moment something shifted under his hand with intention. He forced himself to look away from the blackness below and up at the woods. The trees stood as they always did, thin trunks and bare branches, winter leaves scattered on the ground like spilled paper. Birds moved in the distance. Somewhere farther down the path, a dog barked once, and then went silent. Normal things. But the air around the sycamore didn't feel normal. It felt contained, like the space was shaped around the opening, held by it. Rowan's voice came out rough. We need to close it. Maeve nodded instantly. Yes. Eli blinked. How do you close a door you didn't know existed an hour ago? Rowan looked down at the stone slab. It had shifted aside under the root, exposing the stairwell like a secret pulled from a pocket. He stepped closer, careful not to put his foot too near the edge. The whispering from below drifted up again, soft, overlapping, broken into fragments that almost formed words. Almost. Maeve's grip tightened on his sleeve. Rowan, he stopped, listening. The voices weren't screaming. They weren't even loud. They were like the sound of people talking through a wall in another room, low and constant, as if they'd been speaking for years without anyone hearing them. Eli swallowed hard. That can't be real voices. Maeve's eyes flicked toward the woods. If it is, we're calling someone. Rowan's stomach turned. The idea of calling an adult made sense, logically. It was what people did when they found something dangerous. But Rowan had grown up in a town where adults didn't like dangerous questions. In Hollow Creek, adults didn't say, "That's strange." They said, "That's nothing." They didn't investigate. They covered things up with routine. And Rowan had a sudden, sharp fear that if they left and came back with help, the door would be gone. Sealed, buried, erased. And whatever voices were down there would be back to whispering into stone forever. Rowan's thoughts came out before he could filter them. If we tell someone, they'll close it. Maeve stared at him. Good. No, Rowan said, surprising himself with the force of it. Not good. If the creek is changing, not if this is connected. Eli nodded slowly, as if Rowan had said the quiet part out loud. Not if there's a reason it opened now? Maeve looked between them, irritation and worry mixing in her face. You both have that look. What look? Rowan asked, though he knew. The "we're about to do something stupid because it's interesting" look? Rowan didn't deny it. He looked down at the stairwell again. The darkness didn't feel empty. It felt like attention, like a room full of eyes. The owl above them made a soft sound again. Rowan glanced up. The owl stared straight at him. Not Maeve, not Eli. Him. Rowan's skin prickled. Maeve noticed his expression. What? Rowan jerked his head toward the branch. Maeve's gaze followed, and she froze. That owl wasn't there a minute ago. It was, Rowan said quietly. I saw it before you got here. Maeve's mouth tightened. Great, so now we're being judged by wildlife? Eli's voice was faint. Owls are symbols sometimes. Maeve shot him a look. Do not. Eli lifted a hand in surrender, but his eyes stayed on the owl. I'm just saying, some places have watchers. Rowan felt the word settle in his stomach like a stone. Watchers. The owl blinked once, slow, deliberate. Then, without a sound, it lifted and flew deeper into the woods, away from the creek, away from the path, like it expected them to follow. Rowan stared after it. Maeve exhaled sharply. No. Eli whispered, "Did it just—" "Yes," Maeve said. And the answer is still no. But Rowan couldn't stop thinking about it. About timing, about the door opening, the creek vanishing into the earth, the owl appearing like a punctuation and then leaving like an invitation. He looked at the map tucked in his backpack. The paper felt heavier now, like it didn't want to be ignored. Rowan pulled it out with careful hands and unfolded it. The thin line of the creek on the map shimmered faintly in the late light, as if the ink caught the sun differently than it should. Maeve leaned in to spite herself. That's weird. Eli's eyes widened. It's reacting. Rowan traced the creek line again. The bend on the map still curved left beyond the sycamore. But now, a faint shaded mark hovered near the bend. Something that hadn't been there earlier. A dark square. Maeve frowned. What is that? Eli's voice dropped. Arkstone Mill. Rowan's heart thudded. That wasn't there before. Maeve stared. How do you know? Rowan didn't answer, because he didn't know with certainty. He just knew the way you know you're being watched without seeing eyes. The square wasn't ink dark. It was shadow dark, like the paper had remembered something. The whisper from below rose slightly, as if it sensed their attention shifting. Rowan folded the map quickly, pulse pounding. We need to be careful. Maeve's eyes narrowed. That's what I've been saying. Rowan met her gaze. I'm being careful about how we do this. Eli nodded once, like they were already forming an unspoken agreement. Maeve looked like she wanted to argue, but then her gaze flicked back to the open stairwell. The air rising from below seemed colder now, as if the earth had decided to show its teeth. Maeve's voice softened, just a little. If we go down there, we do it together. Rowan's throat tightened. Yes. Eli raised his flashlight, and we mark our way back. Maeve snapped. You mean like leaving crumbs? In a hole, under a tree. Eli shrugged helplessly. Do you have a better plan? Maeve reached into her pocket and pulled out a small roll of neon orange survey tape. Rowan blinked. Maeve lifted her chin defensive. I keep it for hikes. You never know. Rowan almost smiled, but the nerves in his stomach kept his face still. Fine, Eli said, relief in his voice. That works. Maeve ripped a strip, tied it around a low root near the opening, and tugged it tight. There, she said, so if the world shifts and we forget where we came from, we'll at least have a bright orange piece of plastic to remind us. Rowan took a slow breath. Then he stepped onto the first stair. The stone was slick with moisture, cold enough that it seeped through the sole of his shoe. A thin film of water clung to the carved step, reflecting his flashlight beam in trembling highlights. The darkness below swallowed most of the light. Rowan moved slowly, one step at a time. Maeve followed close behind, her shoulder nearly brushing his. And Eli came last, flashlight held high, notebook stuffed into his jacket, as if words might protect him. The stairway curved down, carved from old stone that didn't look like the kind modern towns used. The walls were too smooth, too deliberate. The air smelled like wet mineral and rusted metal and something faintly sweet, like old wood submerged for too long. The deeper they went, the louder the creak sounded. Not above them, beneath them. Rowan counted steps without meaning to. 1, 2, 3. At 10, Maeve whispered, How many stairs do you think there are? Rowan didn't answer because he didn't want to know. He didn't want the number to be huge. He didn't want the earth to feel too deep. At 27, Eli said softly, This isn't a root cellar. Rowan's voice was tight. No. At 37, the stairs leveled out. Rowan's flashlight beam landed on a wall and stopped, because carved into the stone ahead was the three-circle symbol again. Clean, deliberate, as if someone had traced it yesterday. And beneath it, a lantern. Not a real lantern, but a carving, etched into the wall with careful lines. It looked old and new at the same time. Maeve stared. That's exactly the same style. Eli stepped closer, almost reverent. This is a marker. Rowan's skin prickled. Marker for what? Eli ran his fingers along the lantern carving, not touching the grooves, just hovering. For passages, for safe routes, for places meant to be found again. Maeve's voice rose slightly. Safe? Eli didn't answer, because the whispering was louder here. It drifted from the walls, from the floor, from the air itself. Rowan pressed his ear to the stone and felt a faint vibration, like voices carried through pipes. He pulled back sharply, heart pounding. It's the wall, Rowan whispered. Maeve's face went pale. It's inside the wall? Eli's eyes were wide. Listening stone. Maeve snapped. Stop saying things like that. Eli swallowed. It's a real thing. Some stone carries sound. Old buildings, cathedrals, tunnels. You can hear voices from far away if the structure is right. Rowan's throat went dry. So we're hearing people? Eli hesitated, then very quietly. Or memories. Maeve shook her head hard. No, I'm not doing memories in stone. But her voice wasn't confident. Rowan turned his flashlight down the tunnel beyond the carved wall. The passage stretched forward, narrow and damp, its floor uneven. Water trickled along one side, a thin stream that disappeared into a crack in the stone. The creek, Maeve whispered. It's under us. Eli nodded, voice thin. It's being diverted. Rowan stepped forward, every muscle tight. A cold drop of water fell from the ceiling onto his hand. He flinched. The whispering surged. For a second, it sounded almost like a single voice rising above the rest. Rowan froze. Maeve whispered, What? Rowan didn't answer, because the voice wasn't behind them. It was ahead. They moved forward slowly. The tunnel opened into a small chamber, rounder than the passage, with low stone walls slick with moisture. The air smelled heavier here, like a basement that had held secrets for a century. Rowan swept his flashlight beam across the walls. Initials covered the stone. Hundreds of them, carved at different heights, different depths, some sharp and clean, others worn smooth by time. Maeve stepped closer. People were here. Eli's voice shook. Generations. Rowan's beam caught on a name carved deeper than the rest. Not initials, a full name. H. Calder. Rowan's blood ran cold. Maeve saw it too. Her eyes snapped to Eli. Calder, she whispered. Like. Eli nodded, face pale. Mr. Calder. Rowan's heart pounded. So he knows? Maeve's voice tightened. Or his family did. The chamber seemed to tighten around them. The whispering grew louder, overlapping, urgent. Rowan couldn't make out words, just the sense of too many voices trying to speak at once. The lantern carving behind them began to glow. Not bright, not like electric light, like embers, faint, warm, impossible. Maeve stumbled back. Rowan! Rowan stared, breath caught. The lantern on the wall wasn't reflecting their flashlight. It was lit from within the stone, as if someone had placed a flame behind it. Eli whispered, almost awed. It's responding. Rowan's hands shook. To what? The glow brightened slightly. The whispering sharpened. Then, deep beneath the mill and the creek and the entire town, something moved. Not footsteps, not water. A slow shift, like something vast was turning over in sleep. The stone under Rowan's feet vibrated. Maeve grabbed his arm hard now. We are leaving. Rowan nodded because his body had already decided it. They turned toward the stairway, and Rowan's stomach dropped. The stairs looked darker than before, not just because their flashlight beam wavered, because the darkness seemed thicker, like it didn't want to let light pass. Eli's voice cracked. The door. Above them, faint but clear, came a sound that didn't belong underground. Footsteps on the forest floor. Over the opening, May froze. Someone's up there. Rowan's heart slammed against his ribs. He angled his flashlight up the stairwell. The beam vanished into the curve. Footsteps again. Closer. Then a pause. As if whoever stood above was listening. Rowan's breath turned shallow. Maeve whispered, We're not alone. Eli's voice was barely audible. We never were. The lantern carving behind them flared once, just a pulse of light, and the whispering in the stone surged into one clear, urgent fragment. Don't. Rowan felt his blood turn to ice, not because the word was scary, because it was directed, and because for the first time, the voice didn't sound like memory. It sounded like someone trying to save them. End of chapter 2. If you're enjoying the story, please feel free to subscribe. The next part, chapter 3, will be next week.